And so please take a comfortable seat. You've made it. You're on the path. Your footsteps got you here this morning. Physical, but also mental, emotional, and spiritual footsteps. So you can rest your hands in your lap and let your eyes close. On Friday in class, I was using this analogy of the antenna, which I have, of course, spoken about before. And so I'm going to ask you, when you take your seat, to elongate your spine and connect with this, we call in yoga, central channel, going from the earth up through the base of your spine, up through the central channel to the crown of your skull and beyond. So try to connect into that. Let's call it a plumb line for right now. Something I'd like to say about the antenna is that we are all transmitters and receivers. And that which is transmitting from us, that which we're expressing out into the world, verbal or nonverbal, conscious or non-conscious, that is having an influence on the world. And then what we are receiving, also what we're allowing in, what we're interpreting, misinterpreting sometimes, that to which we expose ourselves, which filters in, this also has an influence. In the practice of yoga, the guidance is to clear this central channel or this energetic pathway so that what we are receiving, we are more clearly interpreting. And even if someone is expressing themselves in such a way as it looks like anger, frustration, confusion, angst, we can still see in them the essential love that they are, as we would also want that to be seen in us. Even if our expression is one of distress, we don't want our innate grace or love or capacity to be forgotten. So we practice this practice to clear this central channel for more clear transmission and reception. On behalf of that intention, now start using your ujjayi breath, just the most subtle form of the ujjayi, to draw it from the lower belly, to inhale upwards through this central channel, and then on the exhale to also begin at the pelvic floor and to go upwards along the front line of the spine. Try to notice your relationship, your mental relationship or emotional to the breath and the breath practice. What is the inner attitude you bring to it? And how does that attitude reflect the way you slept, the foods you've eaten, the conversations you've had, the stimulus to which you exposed yourself, news or otherwise? And start noticing the pauses in your breath cycle. Those are at the top of the inhale and the bottom of your exhale. And again, the quality of the breath and the quality of the mind that is tending to the breath, this reflects things like our choices in sleep, food, conversation, activity, rest, everything. And so we get to see kind of directly the influence of this morning and yesterday and many yesterdays. Now please bring your hands together at your heart in Anjali Mudra. And we'll chant the Gayatri Mantra to begin today. Let's begin. Om Bhargava Suvah Tat Savitor Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimoi Dhiyo Yona Prachodayata Om Bhargava Suvah Tat Savitor Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimoi Dhiyo Yona Prachodayata Om Bhargava Suvah Tat Savitor Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimoi Dhiyo Yona Prachodayata Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Shri Guru Pyo Namaha Hari Om. So may this practice help us to clear the antenna of the mind, the breath, and the body, so we can more clearly receive and transmit that love which we are, which is everything and everyone. You may bow your head to your heart. Release your hands. And if you're sitting cross-legged, take your hands out over your knees. Bring this down a little bit. So the hands will go out so that you're sitting in if you're cross-legged, you're sitting in a tripod base, like a pyramid, and the arms are part of that pyramid, and so is the crown of your skull. Now fix your hands to your knee so that's firm, so that when we do this pranayama practice, you're going to be inhaling, lifting up, and there's resistance from the arms as your hands are holding your knees. And then gaze down to begin. And using the ujjayi breath, we're going to inhale lower, middle, upper, and you want to move the spine and the breath and your gaze at the rhythm of your inhale. And then you'll exhale, and as you're bringing your gaze down, you reverse your posture. Let's do this 4 times at your own pace. Remind yourself that both the inhale and the exhale are going to begin at the base of your spine and go upwards. And that you're using the breath to kind of massage or cleanse the central channel to clear the antenna. One more time. And bring your head up to level. Slide your hands and elbows back so your shoulders and elbows are more just dropping down like a pendulum. And now bhastrika, a strong exhale through the mouth about 30 times. Exhale completely, then inhale completely, and go up on the inhale to suspension, up into the chest and the heart. Release the bandhas and exhale smoothly and slowly. Repeating that, same thing. Exhale. Inhale smoothly. Exhale as you're ready to, and exhale completely, drawing the low belly in to make a very strong exhale. At the end of the exhale, then you radically relax the belly and rest in the next breath that breathes you. Now we're going to do ujjayi inhale on the way up with the posture that we were just using. On the way down, we're going to exhale, blowing out like a straw. So one long exhale like that. So place your hands over your knees again, please. And gazing down to begin. Start with the ujjayi inhale. Again. Three times more at your body's pace. And you bring the head to level, and again slide your hands back so your elbows drop down from your shoulders like a pendulum. And check in with the antenna, the quality of reception and transmission. And now kappalabhati, which leads into nadi shodhana for the suspensions. So let's begin. Exhale through both nostrils. Inhale both nostrils, lower, middle, upper. Come up to suspension. Bring the right hand up. Exhale, left nostril. Inhale, left. Suspend. Exhale, right. Of course, at your own timing. And you'll inhale right. And at your pace, exhale left. And then deeply relax so you're only aware of the antenna. Let everything else fade. Allow your attention to stay only with the antenna. Everything else can fade into the background. And I'd like us to take this sort of inner state that we're cultivating and bring it to the yoga mat for some physical asana. You will need 2 blankets this morning. There's a twisting sequence I'd like to do on the floor as a part of our practice. So let me ask you to get those 2 blankets. You can see that mine are there and they're on the long folded process. And then let's take a wide stance, please. In your wide stance, turn your toes out and come down. We call this the jazz dance warm-up pose. You can press down against your knees now. So in a moment back, we were doing it where you had your hands over the knees and you were kind of pulling up. Now we're going to be pressing down against the knees. Press the inner thighs out, gaze down, and inhale deeply to your lower belly, mid-torso, the back, including the back of your heart. And then exhale, twist to your right. Inhale to center. So the arms are going to be straight. So the spine is always equidistant. Twist to your left. Equidistant from the knees. So we aren't getting closer to one knee or the other when we twist in terms of the spine. So inhale to center. Ujjayi inhale. Exhale, twist to your right. Inhale to center. Exhale left. Once more on each side. Once more right and once more left. So exhale, twist right. Inhale to center. And exhale, twist left. Inhale to center. And exhale, press down to rise up. Once you come up, make your feet parallel and come down to prasarita padottanasana. And place your fingers on the floor. So we're going to go foot, hand, foot. So the hands are lined up with the feet. And I'd like you to inhale and glide forward. And now pretend your fingers are stuck to the mat there. And you have to pull the heart forward using a cow pose spine. And then exhale and bow deeply towards your legs. And think of your cat pose spine. even if your hamstrings don't allow as much movement as mine do. So you inhale, rise up to your fingertips. And exhale to bow towards the legs. And of course, if necessary, you're going to put blocks under your hands to make the floor closer to accommodate your height, your hips, your hamstrings, your lower back, your thoracic spine, to accommodate yourself. And exhale to deeply bow. Twice more, so inhale, glide forward. And exhale. Notice the tone that increases in the lower abdomen, especially as you get towards the end of the exhale. Think of it like squeezing a sponge. And then you inhale, almost like letting the sponge then rehydrate. And once more, exhale. Now rise up to your fingertips and place your hands, whether they're on the floor or on the blocks, place them directly under your shoulders. Turn your right toes out partway, like 45 degrees, and bend your right knee. If you keep the hands where they are, you get this interesting experience for the shoulders and the spine. We're going to inhale up to center with the left toes turned out partway. You're going to exhale and come down to your left. Okay, let's do it together. Inhale to center. Exhale, glide right. And try to use the full length of the exhale to go to your right. Put your weight in your outer heel and pinky toe, not just the big toe. Inhale, glide to center, using the full length of your inhale to arrive. Exhale to your left. You don't need to make the breath unnaturally slow, but you don't have to rush it. Your body is going to learn something in the slower breath process. The speed with which you fire the muscles, the speed with which the mind is moving when you go side to side. Your breath is like the conductor of those things, and your inner wisdom is speaking to the earbud of the conductor. Once more in each direction, so inhale to center. Exhale, glide to your right. Inhale to center. Exhale, glide to your left. And inhale to center. Now please turn your left foot to be parallel with your mat. Turn your right foot directly out. And as you bend the right knee this time, place your right leg like you're doing warrior two. Place your right hand up against your right knee. So you're going to press your knee open, even though the torso stays kind of straight on. So those of you who know me know that I call this the football yoga pose combo, because the legs are doing warrior two, but the torso and your left hand are kind of on the scrimmage line like you're playing football. And I don't watch football, so this isn't a commentary on football. It's just a way to name a yoga pose. So breathing in. Try to open your right inner thigh and the side waist and even the inner belly with the breath. This is a pose that's more stationary. We're not moving from one side to the other. So notice what happens to the quality of your mind and your antenna. And when you next inhale, rise up to center and rotate your right foot to come in to be parallel with the mat. Turn your left toes out. Bend your left knee so it comes down to its warrior two. Place your left hand up against your upper inner left thigh, perhaps against your knee. So you're going to lengthen the inner thigh. To do that, you can have a couple of actions. One is your left hand presses against your knee. The hand can gently press your knee out in line with the toes, elongating. But you can also slide your right hip to the right and further support the left inner thigh to open. Those are small actions that most people may not see from the outside, but you could feel it from the inside. Now, once more, inhale, and then follow your exhale to come back up. Make the 2 feet parallel. If you have a crisscross mat, this is easier to do. Otherwise, you can turn sideways, but I'm going to ask you to step into your downward facing dog pose now. And as you reach back into your dog pose, to really think about the antenna that is yours to take care of, the central channel, the one moving through the body that you get to inhabit. And then with your next exhale, drift your body forward. Please touch your knees down and momentarily sit back to kneeling. Use a block if you need to. You can put it under your hips so that you're sitting in Vajrasana and just check and see, okay, I have this transmission and reception. What is happening now? Now I'd like you to bring these 2 blankets onto your mat horizontally. It looks like a speed bump, I know. And reach for 2 blocks if you don't yet have them on your mat. Place the 2 blocks tall, please. So what we're going to be doing, I'll just explain for a moment. You're going to have one of your knees, we'll start with the left knee, on the blanket. That means that the foot that's behind you, you can either have the toes pointed or tucked under. It's up to you. It's really up to your ankle and to your balance. And then the hands will be on the 2 blocks. We're going to be doing anjaneyasana. So place your left knee up on the blanket and step your right foot through. So when you begin, let me just tie my hair back so I can see you better. When you begin here, you do want your hips to be forward of your back knee. You don't want to be collapsed into your front hip. So it's not like you're making a hammock of the right hip or the front hip. And the fingertips on the blocks are going to be important because that kind of cat pose action that we can make right here is going to support your psoas. This might seem strange when I say, but if you gaze down towards your left knee, so you're gazing down and back like this, you can facilitate a greater opening for your hip flexors. Even though people think of, oh, hip flexors, I have to come into extension, extension, extension. Well, in a way, yes, but not in the wrong part of the spine. So we add this bit of flexion with the head position, and it changes what's happening in the inner belly and the lumbar spine, so that what's going into extension is your hip, not that you're overextending your lumbar spine. And so with the 2 hands, and I use my fingertips because it's easier on my wrists, also makes my arms longer, and makes this cat pose more dynamic. So let's gaze inward like that and see what you can do to find the breath moving through the myriad sensations that are going to come up. It would would not surprise me if you feel like some of the body weight is distributed into your left knee, your arms and fingers, and that your right foot is not required to overwork or over support your pose. Try broadening the back of your waist as if you had a little parachute there, and you'll be less likely to hammock into your right hip joint. Now, keeping this inner belly connection, start to lift low belly, float your fingers off of your blocks, and let's rise up as you inhale. So without losing what you established in the hip and the pelvis, so that this central channel or antenna is well supported. Yeah, so beautiful. Good. And then we're going to exhale, float the arms wide, almost like you're a bird in the sky, and lightly touch the two blocks. They're tall right now. So when you are ready, then tuck the left toes under, straighten your left leg, and make a little leap over your speed bump. And then step your right foot back over the same speed bump. Touch the right knee down to the blanket, and come into the cat pose spine inside of your anjaneyasana. So it's another, like we could say, combo pose, right? You're not likely to lose your balance here, so if you'd like to, you could close your eyes and imagine the inner right belly and whatever gunk you sense has been adhering to your antenna or the central channel. I say that with affection, you guys. So imagine the breath is like it's cleansing the antenna. Keeping a sense of this cat pose spine, what you're going to also notice is your right knee has more responsibility, more duty. It's not just passive. So then sweep the low belly in and slowly rise up with your arms in no particular hurry. Yeah. And feel into that. We do want your right psoas to stay here as a part of the sensation. Not that it goes away as soon as you pick up your hands. Yeah, beautiful. And then exhale again like a great bird, the wings going out. You can touch the two tall blocks and then straighten your right knee and step your right toes over the blanket to meet your left toes. And let's come into Uttanasana. I know your blocks are tall right now. Inhale, glide your heart forward. And exhale for a deep bow over the legs. Shift your hands to your hips and please rise up to standing. Join your palms to your heart. I know your blankets are still behind you. Okay. Ujjayi, inhale, rising up. Ujjayi, exhale, chair pose. Rising up. Uttanasana. Coming forward, Ardha Uttanasana. Okay, left toes back and left knee down. Inhale to rise, Anjaneyasana. Exhale, slowly descend, so don't collapse into your right hip, please. Inhale, straighten your left leg and step forward, one smooth inhale. Uttanasana. Inhale, glide forward. Try rising up on your fingertips on the tall blocks. Notice the quality of freedom. Exhale, right toes back and right knee down. Inhale, anjaneyasana. Exhale, arms wide, again like a bird in the sky. This time, put the two blocks medium, turn them slightly out, and step backwards over your speed bump to your downward dog pose. Then inhale forward to your plank pose, and look at that blanket, is so handy. Exhale, lightly touch the two knees to the blanket, and then inhale, glide them back to plank. And exhale very lightly, I often say like two dragonflies, hardly touching the surface of the water. Inhale back to plank. Once more, exhale very lightly. And inhale back to plank. And then exhale to downward facing dog pose. And look at that little speed bump. You're going to be stepping over that in a moment. So with an exhale, step your right foot forward over the speed bump. Touch the left knee down. Inhale, anjaneyasana. Bring with you the belly tone that you just had in that plank pose. So it's not the same position, so it's not like tense, but it has that feeling of tone. So the right knee a moment ago was like a little dragonfly on the water. And then exhale, Anjali Mudra, and touch the two blocks. Prepare to step over your speed bump. Inhale to plank pose. Exhale, downward facing dog pose. Enjoy the inhale, notice the speed bump. And exhale, bring your left foot forward. Touch your right knee down. Inhale, rise up, Anjaneyasana. You're doing so beautifully, thank you. There's a cat approaching the keyboard. Uh-oh. Exhale to come down. Okay, now inhale to step forward and heart forward. Exhale, deep bow to the legs. You can keep the blocks on the medium setting if you prefer that. We're going to inhale, rise up, Urdhva Hastasana. Hello. Exhale, Anjali Mudra. I'm sorry, but you cannot sit on the computer during class. In fact, you can never sit on the computer. That's not a heating pad for kittens. Okay, with the two blankets right there and your two blocks, come down for a moment to take a seat and check in with your antenna. So what I'll recommend is that the two blocks go under your knees. You're sitting on the blanket, so the hips are higher. Cross your ankles. And yeah, you can cross them either way. So if one is more comfortable than the other, you can go to that one. Yeah. Where do you want to be, honey? And as you close your eyes and check in, listen to, feel into, okay, what is now happening inside the antenna, the central channel? And sometimes the first few moments of what is happening, you sense it as the decrescendo of the activity, but you're coming back into this, hopefully this kind of mystical stillness. Now I'd like to show you something and have you watch it before you try it, because I want to explain a few things. I also, in my own practice, I have a crisscross mat here, so I have more padding in both directions. So you're going to have to adapt for what your body needs. What I'm going to do is put these 2 blankets. These are going to be here for the upper back. The blocks are at the ready in case you need something for your head. Let me scoot my microphone. So the part that I want you to be able to understand is what's going to happen with, let's call this the back leg. It's because you're going to go in both directions. So there's a position we do in yoga where you lie on your side like this, and the right leg is bent. And then the left leg, you place it like a crisscross. This is 90 degrees at the knee. This is also 90 degrees at the knee. Now, something to notice is that for some of you, getting your left knee to the floor is not going to be a possibility for any number of reasons. So you've got your right foot, right shin, right thigh, right knee. In my case, this is also called the front leg. And then you have your left hip, left thigh, left shin, left foot, also called the back leg. And let's start with the back knee at about the height of your hips. And interlace your fingers behind your head. You don't need the block for your head for this part. Your right arm can sufficiently hold your head up. Now start to lengthen out from your left hip into your left knee like a telescope. You can keep it the same height as your hip for now. Lengthen it, and let the torso side bend over the blanket. So you're opening the left side ribs, and in the inner belly, left psoas, left iliacus. But as you lengthen your left thigh, squeeze the left butt muscles on the back side so that your hip joint is actually alive and strong. You can think of your torso as either like a slinky going over the blanket towards your head, or like a kitten melting off the desk as they sleep. And then you can lengthen your left arm overhead, reaching past your ear. So the left arm and left leg actively reach away from each other. And your right hand can help to support your head, but that little slinky over, you're shortening your right rib cage and opening the left rib cage. And now really thoughtfully, let's bring the left elbow and the left knee in. And now you want your block for your head. Please stack the 2 knees with a block between them. Open your right arm on the floor and raise the left arm to come up and over towards a spine twist. Go slowly. There's a lot to discover. This is not your standard spine twist. Because of the props that we're using, you're going to have some new places of discovery in your body. And when you're rotating, let's prioritize this twist for the upper back spine. So keep the 2 knees stacked. In fact, lengthen your left thigh like you just were. Lengthen it out from your hip to your knee. And don't worry if you don't come all the way down. I'm not expecting that your left arm is going to reach the floor. Listen for the ujjayi breath. Imagine that you're doing that cleansing in the central channel of the body, which is actually a subtle energy pattern, but you can kind of correspond it with your spine. And then unwinding Raise your left arm up. Cross over like the sky and return. And then I'm going to ask you once more to watch here. So now I'm going to take my left foot with my left hand, and I just curled that behind me so that my left toes are actually, they're pointed up towards my left hip. They're not flexed. And then, oh yeah, there's your quadricep stretching. So lengthen out through your left thigh towards your left knee. Clasp your hands to hold your head again. And lay the torso over your blanket. You're also going to start rolling into a twist in the upper body. And what you're going to find out is, oh, those were your quads, but now it's also your hip flexors. Lengthen your left elbow. All that pranayama we were doing when we hold the head, this is for the last couple of weeks, not today, where you had brought one elbow forward and one elbow up. You can use that technique now. So in this case, my right elbow is reaching towards the ceiling and towards my left knee. And the left elbow is overhead for this twist. This is the happiness of the quadriceps and the hip flexors. And kind of hard to get into some of the hip flexors, specifically if the quads are tight, we end up feeling them first. And then using your abdominal muscles, start to raise your left elbow up, and then you're going to rotate your upper torso out from the twist and slide your left foot up so your left knee can come up to your right knee. Okay, hi. Sorry. You know, when we're in person, we can hear the moaning and the sighing and the groaning, but now we don't get to actually hear that from each other. Okay, let's do the other side. I'm going to turn myself about so that you can still see me. You can stay as you are. Roll onto your left shoulder blade. I have to recall that I wasn't mirroring you, so bring your blocks close enough to reach them, please. And let's start with the two knees stacked like this. And this block for your head so you know where you're going to be. This is one of your sort of base starting points. And then take the right knee, step it back. It is totally fine if your knee doesn't reach the floor because we're actually going to keep it up at the height of your hip. But I want you to try to make this 90 and then 90. Keep your block nearby so you'll have it when you need it. Clasp your hands. Now we do let the upper torso slinky over the blanket, but the right leg is going to stay active. So I want you to press from your right hip out through your right knee and tone your right butt muscles. You're breathing into your hip flexors there. If you'd like to, you can lengthen your right arm past your right ear. So think of the length of your right thigh, not how close can you get your knee to the floor, but the length of your thigh. There's a lot of information in the inner belly. Some of this is going to be your side waist or your lower back as well. Let's now bring the right knee and the right elbow down. You'll want your block for your head and a block for your knees. And I put the block for the head on the medium setting here because we're on 2 blocks. Stretch the left arm out on the floor. And let's go up and over. And keep the right thigh getting longer so you really are concentrating from your hip out to your knee. And don't worry how far can you go. Think of the subtlety and the integrity that's needed along the way. You may have two very different twists. You might have different hips or wrists or elbows or shoulders. You could also have a spinal rotation that goes in one direction more than the other. My twist is less spinal flexibility to twist to my left. And there's reasons for that based on the sports that I've been involved in and the injuries I acquired in those sports. It's been very interesting over the years to work with people, for example, golfers. A person who plays golf has a very interesting spinal rotation, lower and upper back. Okay, let's raise this up as you are ready to. Unwinding from the twist there. And then what we're going to do is put this block aside, reach to hold your right ankle, and you are taking the toes of the right foot, kind of to point them down behind you. Sorry, the left leg can stay where it is. And this one we're going to put aside in favor of clasping the hands behind the head again. So first we're just going to have a little slinky over the blanket. And then the twist of the head, you're going to start rotating so that your right elbow is going to lean you back into a little back bend over the blanket, and the left elbow, I'm going to pull that one forward to support your head for rotation, but also that you're not just flopping the head backwards. And you may feel your quadriceps, of course, right? Quadriceps, sometimes you have to release the quads before you're going to feel the hip flexors. One of your quadriceps is a hip flexor, so you might be feeling that one. But some of you are also going to feel into the other hip flexors like the psoas or sartorius or TFL. And start to unwind your head using your hands for that support. And then sweep your right leg around, find your Flintstones pillow, and check and see what's happening within you. And then press up to sitting. Okay, so we're gonna clean the antenna a couple ways more. So these two blankets, I do want you to keep them. Let me scoot this over. Please lie on your back with your hips on your blankets. And when you lie down, let's think of the blankets a little bit like a typewriter bar. You can move it right or left. And I'd like you to take the typewriter bar to the left. So you're sitting on the far end of your typewriter bar. And bring your right knee up to your chest and the left leg out into another kind of psoas stretch. You can turn your head to center if you like. I'm just looking in your direction. It's not part of the pose. Yeah. And notice if maybe the psoas is a little bit easier to access right now because of the work we were just doing. You could imagine this thing we call the central channel, that it's not limited to the bones of your body, certainly, but beyond the pelvic floor, downstream past your left heel, beyond the crown of your skull, upstream. I'd like you to take your 2 blocks to the left side of your pose. You can place them there. You won't know how high you need them to be until you go to the pose. So what's going to happen is we're going to roll to the outer left hip, and I would like your right knee to have a support there. So my blocks happen to be, one is on the flat, one is on the medium, and they're stacked on top of each other. That doesn't mean that that's going to be your setup. That means that it's my setup. Open your right arm out as you twist. In other words, I don't want the right knee just to be dangling there. And I would like you to lengthen and energize your left leg. So even the left butt can be toned right now because you're actively reaching out through your left heel. It's okay that the right foot, you can just have it hover a little bit. You can be responsible for the weight of your right ankle. It does not need to touch the floor. We don't have to architecture a support for it right now. And let's roll back to center. Return your right knee to your chest. Keep the left leg long. Notice any difference. Maybe it's getting more easeful. And then curl your chest and shoulders and head up towards your right knee. Release your head down and float your left knee to come in. So the blanket is going to support both knees to kind of fall towards your shoulders. Yeah. Now we have to move the typewriter bar to the other side. So you touch down, slide this across. And then bring your left knee up to your chest and reach the right leg out. And again, you can have your head centered. I'm just looking at you. You don't have to turn your head because I am. So when you bring the left knee in, lengthen your right leg and deliberately use your right butt muscles. Right now you can give them a little squeeze. Might seem kind of paradoxical, but they have a reflex to send to the hip flexors a little instant chat message. In other words, when you tone the glutes on the back of your right butt, they kind of notify the hip flexors on the front of your hip that it's okay for them to relax a bit. Let's get the block set up for this variation on a twist. So I'm putting mine so that my left knee is going to have support. I'm going to start with what I did on the other side, but you can always modify it, of course. If you have a more limited side, I generally recommend that you treat both hips according to that limitation, because sometimes you end up with the less limited side becoming less and less limited, more and more flexible, and the limited side staying more limited. So Let's experiment. Roll to your right outer hip and place your knee. So mine is about same this morning. And you can place your right hand on your left knee if you like, and you can be responsible for your left hip. So left foot. It's not heading towards the floor. It's just a decoration right now. Twist your upper body to your left and reach your left arm out to the twist, wherever your left arm is most comfortable. And you may notice again, you have some asymmetries. That's okay. And being thoughtful about where you are in physical space, begin to unwind. We're going to come back to that psoas position. Yeah, good. Notice what's different, what's changed. And then you can try bringing your head and shoulders up. And then when you release, go ahead and bring your right knee up towards your right shoulder. So both knees are going to drop in. The blanket supports that since your hips are higher than your shoulders are right now. And then you can bring both feet down to the floor. Put the two blankets right behind your hamstrings. So that's going to cause your pelvis to be more neutral, right? So between the hip bones and the pubic bone, it's likely to be more neutral, not arched and not rounded. And from where you are, if you'd like to have a longer arm, you gotta go. You have to have different parents in my case. So if you'd like to cover with a blanket, even if you're not cold, sometimes it's nice to cover the lower body. We're still in Vata season and it can feel kind of grounding to have that support. So this is a very, very important time to rest now, because your meditation is depending on what happens in your shavasana. And your meditation is the gem. We sometimes say the crowning jewel of your whole practice is the meditation. So let's rest and integrate. If you have an eye pillow or a sandbag, of course, you can also use those. Let's imagine the central channel now a little bit less like an antenna and more like a river, just to find out how that river is flowing. So when you listen to that river in the inner body, you can also kind of cultivate it. You have imagination. You can imagine the river. It gets smoother, more unctuous, tranquil. Continue imagining that river. Let everything else fade for now. Your entire attention can be focused on the smoothness of this river in the central channel of your body. Visualize only the river, neither the past nor the future, only the river, the present moment. We let everything else fade. keeping awareness that meditation is the crowning jewel of your practice. Let's bring some awareness to the present moment with the anticipation of transitioning for meditation. That means disturb yourself as little as possible in making your transition. I would recommend that you do roll to one side. And then rise up to sit when you have the seat that you want to sit on. Go ahead and establish that. With as little extracurricular activity as necessary, only just to get yourself comfortable. And we'll imagine again the central channel is like an antenna. There's transmission and reception. Let everything else fade, everything around you. Mental dust bunnies, the ceiling fan of the mind. Keep your mind at rest in this central channel. You're having access to something that is often in daily life a little bit elusive. Let us not squander the opportunity. Please bring your hands together at your heart. May our practice today help us to transmit the essence that wants to shine through us. May we also be able to see that in others, even if their communication is not reflecting that directly. May we see it in everyone and everything. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Thank you very much, everyone. Namaste. I'm going to come up to see you closer. Oh, here are my glasses. I have one kitten asleep now and one kitten hiding. So we'll see if you get to see either one of them. Thank you all for being here. Let me change my camera so you can see me better. Hi. And how are you feeling from the practice?
I'm pretty calm now, but boy, I really noticed my inner critic today by being, I think, in the poses for so much longer than I'm used to.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I found that interesting, like how quickly it appeared.
Yeah. But also you're telling me that you were aware of it, right?
Yeah,
So your inner witness is there, even though the inner critic is also there. Is that right?
yeah, I would say yes.
Well, that's a beautiful thing. Even though you had the inner critic visiting, and that can seem disruptive, to have the witness perspective of it with some affection and curiosity, which is what I'm hearing in your voice tone,
Yeah,
that actually can be wonderful.
it's
And
been a
it came because, say again?
it's been a process, something I've been working on to deal with that inner critic, which is, and I'm just now realizing and observing how often it shows up, and learning to just look at it and go, okay.
Yeah. Did I hear you say it was, I hold the poses, some of the poses longer than you're accustomed to?
No, just what I've been practicing lately.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been in yin classes before, and but it's been a really long time. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the pace of the class, I'll just clarify, because this could be further information for you, Nicole, about the nature of the inner critic. If we look at it not only through our kind of like Western psychological lens, but also our doshas and the dosha of our society and the season that we're in. And you're in Texas, is that right?
no, I'm actually in Washington right now. I tried to change it at the beginning of class, but
Okay. So when we experience the inner critic at different times in the calendar year, like in Vata season, this is Vata season. So we want to keep the practice closer to the ground, a little bit slower. We want it to be warming and heating for Vata, but we don't want Vata to be like flittering off, like those two dragonflies, like, like you'd see them in the summer in Pitta season when they're doing their dragonfly thing. So for Vata to be less airborne all the time, less windy, We have some poses we hold longer, get more grounded, become more still. And so sometimes that's when the inner critic comes. It's opposing the vata dosha may want to move. We're trying to quiet. The inner critic opposes that. At other times, let's say in pitta season, somebody's inner critic, when pitta comes and I say to the class, okay, we're going to move with sweetness and grace and elegance, and we're going to keep our focus really refined, because pitta doesn't need to be a brush fire. It can be like the flame on the gas stove that you're just working with such elegance and artistry. And then pitta's like, I'm no good at this. Oh no, this is not working. I have a million things to do and I should be getting those things done. In fact, I should not be taking yoga class. So sometimes each of the doshas, which we have all of them, we all have all the doshas. So sometimes that's also influencing the nature of the inner critic, and we can have an appreciation for that presence as well. Is that making sense?
It does, actually. It makes a lot of sense.
So in the kappa season, when kappa starts coming, and here in the Pacific Northwest, I associate that with daffodils blooming. Okay, kappa has arrived. Then we want the practice to be moving a bit more, in fact, heating, so that we can prevent stagnation. We don't want kappa to be a season of mud and unctuousness where we get stuck in the mud. We want kappa to be a season of growth, like things are coming to bloom in us and in life. Going down, okay. So each season I teach a little bit differently.
That's wonderful. If I wanted to learn more about all those words you just used, where could I start?
Well, there's a book actually about Ayurveda and yoga together, which is called Yoga for Your Type.
Okay.
So that's a basic starter book, Yoga for Your Type, to see how George Frawley and I think it's Suzanne Anderson, but I'm having a moment of, I wonder if Emily might remember from her teacher training. No, she has mom brain and I have TBI brain. So, but it is called Yoga for Your Type. And I'm calling that a starter book because it gives you the structure of asana. He beautifully talks about the vayus and the doshas. In terms of the sequences that they recommend in the back of the book, they're a little bit complicated to execute. So your next book after that might be the one that Shivananda Yoga Center put together on Ayurveda. It's a beautiful book with a yellow cover. Sorry.
That's awesome.
Mm.
It's okay. I'll figure it out.
It is the Shivananda Yoga Center that put that next book together. And that one also has recipes, which is kind of nice to have additionally some food recipes.
How do you spell that first word of the yoga center?
Shivananda, Sivananda, Shivananda.
Yeah, that ought to make it easy to find.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, yeah. Those are good questions you're asking, and I appreciate you letting me improvise on your question too.
Oh, no problem.
Thank you.